Welcome, everyone. What we're watching, episode 23. We have hit Michael Jordan.
Jordan episode.
This is Michael Jordan in his Birmingham Barons era.
Yes. He was great.
I saw him twice. I saw him 2 times.
I can't say that. I don't know if I've ever been in the same airspace as Michael Jordan, but if I were, he would know.
Mhm.
If anybody was expecting a more dramatic end to that story, I'm sorry. He would just know.
All right, so it took us 22 episodes, but we made it through the Sopranos, and now we're doing a follow-up with our overall Sopranos thoughts. But first of all, we have got a little prequel movie that they did for us, The Many Saints of Newark. So we're here to talk about that today. It's an American crime drama film prequel to the story of The Sopranos, directed by Alan Taylor and written by David Chase and Lawrence Connor. Now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the film's release was delayed twice. Originally slated for September the 25th, 2020. It was rescheduled to September the 24th before being delayed yet again to October the 1st, 2021. The film was released in the United Kingdom on September the 22nd, 2021. We start out in a cemetery with several voices of the dead explaining themselves as their graves are shown. When we see the grave of Christopher Moltisanti, whose voice begins to narrate, he says that he lived and died by the mob life, but that was sometimes later. Original thoughts, TJ.
I love the way it starts because they could have just went straight in with the voice that we would recognize with Christopher, but instead, as they're panning through the cemetery and showing the different, gravestones, we're getting the recollection of that person talking about their life and what they thought they meant to the people that were in their life. So I was like, man, that is an amazing way to look at death right there. Like, that's dope.
Absolutely. And I will follow up more on it at the end, but that was one of the big moments for me. I'm like, ooh, they got Christopher to narrate. I'm like, oh,
Spider.
I'm in. I'm into it now. Jump back to Newark in the late 60s, where Christopher's father, Dickie, is walking into the train station with his nephew and Chris's later uncle, Anthony Tony Soprano. Chris notes that Tony will later kill him in the future.
He's going to kill me one day.
Dickie and Tony meet Dickie's father, Hollywood Dick, and his new wife from Italy, Giuseppina. Dickie later brings Aldo and Giuseppina to his house to have dinner with him and his wife, Joanne. Dickie and Dick are involved with the mob, specifically the DeMeo crime family.
Yeah. Welcome, Ray Liotta.
Welcome, Ray Liotta. On the streets, an enforcer of Dickie is Harold McBrayer, played by Leslie Odom Jr., is seen chasing a young street thug, Leon Overall, for money owed to him. Harold beats him up until Dickie drives in and stops him. Harold, meanwhile, has aspirations to do better for himself and for his family.
Overall, like the pants?
The Soprano family gathers for the confirmation of Tony's sister, Janice. Their father, Giovanni Johnny Boy, delivers a speech in Janice's honor. Also in attendance is Johnny's wife and the kid's mother, Livia, Johnny's brother, Corrado Jr., Silvio Dante, and Salvatore Big Pussy Bonpiancero. While discussing some business between Dickie and Johnny, Jr. tells Dickie to get a handle on his situation before things get out of hand. Now, we will get to everything later on because there's a big moment coming up that affects everyone's lives. But for me, this was the first my spidey sense was tickling. I'm like, that's going to become something.
Yeah.
And there are a couple more of those moments. I'm like, that's going to become something there because, as we've said about other people and other things, Junior at the end of the day is going to Junior, ain't he?
Junior's always gonna Junior. Here's where I get at this point, because if you watched The Sopranos, which we have, and if you've been watching along with us, then you'll notice this as well. There are not a lot of long-standing characters of color in the show. So
Right,
getting Leslie Odom's introduction and realizing what I do from the series, I knew off bat he can't stay here long, right? Because the only real talk we get of a predominant person of color is the brothers that Tony and Paulie killed and ended up going to Miami for whenever those bodies were excavated.
right.
So I'm like, okay, so this can't go well. And again, shouts out to Leslie Odom. I think he is an amazing actor, and he brought some real. He did not, in my opinion, he didn't fall short of the mark. You know, it's like if you're going to be that first predominant person of color to play a role in this universe, expectations are high,
Right.
and I thought he did an amazing job.
I was thinking the same thing as you, and I'm like, wait, this is a pretty major character in this universe. What happens
Right.
later on? And I thought that that's where we were really headed. And there are some twists and turns along the way.
Mhm.
Harold meets Dickie and the rest of the crew at Satrial's meat market to deliver his cut of earnings, but Dickie complains about how light it is. He even chides Harold over the mess involving a young man from a street gang. In retaliation, Harold and his cousin Cyril track Leon down. When he attempts to hide in an army recruitment office, he's like, I heard the GI Bill. What did he say he wanted to be?
A scientist. I want to be a scientist.
Harold spots him and goes in the building to blast Leon with a shotgun. And that guy's like, this ain't my war.
This ain't my war. I didn't even want to be here today. They told me if I didn't come here, that I would have to go in the front lines, and I just can't do it. I can't cut hair no more because they closed my barber and shop. That was Bill Dotrieve. We never get his name, but that was the personification of Bill Fontaine de la Tour Dotrieve.
Do you need a 4F form? I got one.
I got one right.
Whose name you want me to put on it?
I get $25 if you sign up. I'll split it with you.
Homeboy was like, he went from be all you can be to this ain't even my war.
This ain't even my war. And look, before we move on from that, I mean, the way that Dickie insulted Harold was so sly, but it was a straight up slap to the face. Aren't you embarrassed right now?
Mm-hmm.
Coming in here talking to me about a kid? You're a grown man. I'm like, oh man, that was straight to the chops.
Absolutely. Now this is something I almost went back and watched it again. And I know you got the disc. Every single recap I saw this said the same thing. Now I'm gonna read what they write, and then I'm gonna tell you what I remember. I'm
Okay.
like, maybe I saw some special cut about this.
Okay.
Not long after, a cab driver is pulled over by two racist cops. Now, what I remember is that his passenger tells him to turn right, and it's a one-way street.
Yeah.
Now, he turns right, and the guy said, just go ahead and do it. He turns right, he lets his passenger off, and they pull in behind him. It's not like they just pulled him over and all that. Now, everything else, they do pull him out, and it's on, but
Right.
I'm like, they didn't really stop him. He turned right on the wrong way on a one-way street and stopped.
So, yeah, that was set up. It was, to me, it feels like that was set up.
I could see
Like,
that. I could see that.
Whomever in the DeMeo side is like, I mean, essentially, there had to be a shot fired, and you don't want it to come from you. so you let the police do it for you. Because that guy who got out of the cab saw the subsequent police coming and pulling up behind the guy. He didn't stop. He didn't go back and say, hey, man, I told him to do it. He let that dude get worked. So I feel like it was a setup.
Oh, I feel like he wouldn't. Either way, he wouldn't say, "Oh no, I told him to do it." It's like, no, get another one. You know how he would be.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly how it would happen. Protests soon break out when the black community believes that the cabbie was killed, despite the fact that he is just in custody. Dickie, the crew, and everyone around the city can see heavy smoke from fires caused by the riots. Now, there are several instances, this being one of them, where they are mimicking real life here.
Right.
Giuseppina tries taking English classes, but Dick thinks they're a waste of money based on what she retains. He also proves to be a terribly abusive husband, kicking her down the stairs when they have an argument.
So I was laughing. I don't want the folks to think, because you were giving those playbacks very quickly. So it seemed like I was laughing about her falling down the stairs. I was not. I was laughing about the dialogue that goes on between Hollywood Dick and Josephina whenever she's in the car. Because he's like, what did you learn today? This is your dog. He's like, what? Whose dog? It's just the back and forth. And then he just immediately gets pissed off. All the while, he knows the language to speak to her. He can speak to her in her native tongue, no problem. But he's giving her crap because of how she's going about learning English. I just thought that was a little bit of humorous dialogue there.
What did you learn? This is your dog.
Whose dog?
And she's probably like, no, that's what I learned.
That's what we learned today.
Johnny and several others are arrested during a card game while he is out with Janice. Tony is also there, but is hidden because Johnny had earlier told him to stay behind. A scene that we originally saw in The Sopranos.
And I wanted to say something about that too, man. It's like we're looking for, and that's part of what I was looking for coming into this movie. You said you had no expectations, which I feel like that's the best way to go into any movie,
right,
with no expectations. But because of how much this show meant to me and how many times I've watched it all the way through, I'm sitting there remembering flashbacks that we've had in the series and wondering how many of them are going to make their way into the movie. So seeing this one, and it seems like they used the scene from the show. I mean, am I wrong to say that they got a different kid for Tony? It looked like the same kid.
No, it's a different kid. They may have like superimposed him, but they had the original. They had the kid in this playing Tony instead of the original scene. Tony and Janice are taken home by police, where Livia yells at them. Tony runs away from her into the streets. Meanwhile, more riots and protests happen across the city. Now, was that the original one? Was that the episode that Michael B. Jordan was in?
No, yes, actually it was, because this is like really the first introduction that we had got into Tony's life as a child. So we see Tony going to school, and his mom is giving him a hard time because the riots are going on. He's got to be mindful of where he's walking on his way to school so that he doesn't cross over into the bad neighborhood. So yeah, this is the one where Michael B. Jordan got his start.
Dickie sees Giuseppina looking distraught after enduring abuse from Dick. Although he tries to comfort her, she senses the attraction between them and she kisses him. But he tells her not to because Joanne is in the house. Dickie later confronts his father over his abuse, saying that he couldn't tolerate it when he abused Dickie's mother, and he is not going to take it now. When Dick insults him too much, Dickie snaps and bashes Dick's head against the steering wheel until he is dead. Tony walks by the house and almost sees, but Dickie tells him to go home. He drives Dick's body to a drainage supply warehouse that the family owns, and he sets fire to the place with Dickie's body inside to make it look like he was a casualty of the riots. Now, at this point, like I told you, no expectations. I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, man, Ray Liotta was not in a lot of that movie.
He really wasn't.
not knowing
And
what would come up.
what was coming, right?
A funeral is held for Dick. Paulie, Walnuts, Galtieri, and Big Pussy steal a TV and bring it to the service to watch news on the riots. Actually, he drops it at what's his name's feet.
It was a debt.
Yeah, he's like, here.
Yeah, it was a debt. He was like, "Where are my 3 C's?" And he was like, "Here." And he's like, "What the hell am I supposed to do with this?"
What was it? RCA? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it was an RCA.
It's an RCA. So they set it up in the back room. As they discuss things, Junior tells them that any business done while Johnny is away will go through him. Dickie walks into the room and smashes the TV to feign anger over their disrespect at the funeral. Dickie later goes to visit his uncle and Dick's twin brother, Sal, also played by Ray Liotta, to inform him of Dick's death. Sal notes that it's odd for Dick to have been in the warehouse because he's never picked up a tool and got his hands rough, so it makes little sense for him to be there. He had soft hands.
He had soft hands.
Which means
he was there after hours just securing the place.
Which means Sal knows what's going on.
Okay.
And he's like, look, I'm going to suddenly call you on your shit because I'm here for life anyway. What are you going to do? You touch me, they'll take you out. I'll just go back to my cell. Dickie begins an affair with Giuseppina, even buying a house for them. She expresses her aspirations to open up her own hair salon, since she used to do that back in Italy at her mother's shop.
Mm-hmm.
This storyline combines 2 plots from The Sopranos, when Christopher gives Adriana a nightclub to run and when Tony agrees to let Carmela build a spec house. In both Sopranos storylines, the language between the couples is almost identical to that used in the film.
True stuff. Now, I did want to say this before we got too far. What we saw at the funeral for Hollywood Dick was a precursor for what we would see in the show with people's behavior at funerals. Like, people, like, they take funerals seriously, man. Like, Paulie was pissed that everybody went to
Christopher's instead of his mother's.
Right. I had 1,000 of these printed. People used to collect prayer cards like baseball cards. Right.
The only thing I will say that, and if there was a scene and I missed it, I apologize. The only thing that I missed in the movie that I thought was going to be there was Junior making an inappropriate phone call. I'm sorry that I can't make it to your surprise party.
Right.
It's the only thing that I missed.
That's the only listen. Like, Junior is going to Junior, and I think that's just going to be a tagline for any character that just does them. Junior is going to Junior.
At school, Tony and his friend Artie Bucco
over here
are taking bets and gambles from other students at school. Now, you had a student there. There's one in every crowd. Mess it up for everybody. Hey, my number.
I won. My numbers.
This causes Tony to get expelled from school. Although Junior tries to talk to Tony, Livia notes that he'll only listen to Dickie. That was the second time.
Bro, so that right there, mind you, he never had the makings of a varsity athlete.
We'll get there. Just
you wait. Just you wait. But it's funny to see this because for a while, Tony actually, like, if you look in the earlier seasons, like before the attempt, and even for a little bit after that attempt on Tony actually did go to Junior for, for wisdom, so, for counseling. So to see that relationship, because again, you're talking, and it makes so much more sense now, because Junior is essentially during the series playing the role of Dickie, because not only was Tony not going to hear Corrado, over Dickie. You see the relationship between Corrado and Livia versus the relationship between Dickie and Livia. Dickie was like a shining star in Olivia's eyes. She like legitimately enjoyed him.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what did Junior come in with? Because he's like, here, take one for yourself. I can't remember what he had.
Ooh. The hair dryer.
The hair dryer. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because he didn't want to give one to Dickie.
Right.
He had one for Livia. You know, he didn't want to give one to Dickie, and Dickie was like, "Yeah, let me get one of those. It'll be good for Priscilla to have down at the shop."
He goes upstairs to Tony's room to talk to him about the gambling and other troublesome deeds he has been committing in an attempt to get him to apply himself better at school. They even pinky swear on it.
Remember that one?
Yes. Harold finds Dickie while he is out to dinner with Junior, Silvio, Paulie, and their gumas. Harold asks Dickie if he can borrow some money, which he gives him, and they decide it's goodbye between them. He's coming down to North Carolina.
The tobacco state.
4 years later, Johnny is being released from prison. As Junior's driving him home, Johnny complains about the presence of African Americans in the neighborhood. He returns to a welcome home party for him. He sees his daughter Barbara for the first time since she was a baby, but then chides Janice for how she is dressed. Livia tries to warmly greet her husband, but she loses it when he starts complaining about the black folks in the neighborhood.
So you hear him whenever he comes in the house. He's like, all I really wanted to do was go to my Gumar's house, and you recognize, we know who he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because he had slippers at her house.
And then go to sleep.
And then go sleep. But and then also we get to see the dog as well in this episode that will eventually make its way to his Gumar's house.
It's coming. It's coming. He then sees Tony, now played by Michael Gandolfini, again, learning that he is trying out for the football team. Although Junior notes that he doesn't have the makings of a varsity athlete.
We got to see him telling that to the girl cousins.
Tony also meets baby Christopher, who cries when Tony tries talking to him. A relative suggests that babies have knowledge of things from the other side. This guy's gonna kill him.
That's the thing that I thought was funny as well. How we have, again, seeing that relationship between Tony and Christopher before Tony, did what he did. And, Christopher always wanting his approval. Well, now it seems like, Christopher as a baby wanted absolutely nothing to do with Tony.
And Tony wanted his approval.
And Tony wanted his approval. Right. Everything's full circle.
I don't know about you, TJ. I don't know anything about how you grew up, but we always had those people in my family. That older relative who always chimes in with stuff like that, who's never sitting like right next to you. They're always like 2 or 3 seats away. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that information?
Listen, like you'll hear it oftentimes, and I talking about how I grew up. We grew up in a community where people kind of talk trash about one another. So we go to somebody's house and somebody says, "Oh, let me say prayer. Let's thank Jesus for this bountiful meal." And then after we say amen, you hear somebody in the background, "But I don't want none of that potato salad." So I mean, it just right after grace. I don't want none of that potato salad. So yeah.
It's like, do you remember? I hate to get sidetracked, but I think of this episode often. That episode of the Cosby Show where they start talking about home remedies and all of that.
Yeah.
When Olivia was sick, and they're like, "Get you some turpentine, just a little, and put it in there," and a spider's web. And all of that. There's one in those in every family too.
Got to. I always going back to the old school remedies, man, because they never fail. Look, if you're feeling ill, slice an onion and put it in your sock before you go to sleep.
Did you?
It's supposed to pull it out.
I don't have an onion on me.
No, look, bro, I keep an onion in my fridge just for that reason.
Oh,
I hadn't been sick in months.
do you keep the sock next to it? That's my onion sock.
Proud of it too. That's my onion sock.
Now, probably not the next show, but sometime in the future, we will do Game of Thrones. I can
No,
promise
we
you.
have to. We have
At
to.
this point, do you become the Onion Knight?
Yes. And of all the B level character, I'll be the Onion Knight all day. I'll be the Onion Knight.
I'm watching it. I told you, I'm letting the audience know I'm watching it with my wife now. And we've gotten up to the point where he's learning how to read. Stannis' daughter is teaching him how to read.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna.
We'll go off into a tangent land. So let's bring it back to Newark.
Well, no, because the thing about it is, anybody who's watched the Game of Thrones just heard what you said about Stannis teaching his daughter how to read, and they just got sad too. Because they know
Stannis' daughter was teaching him how to read.
Stannis' daughter is teaching the Onion Knight how to read. Excuse me, but you mentioned Stannis' daughter, so anybody who's watched Game of Thrones heard you mention his daughter, and they're like, "Oh, she's got the grayscale." Oh,
well, I'll tell you, my wife is like, so who should we root for? I'm like, don't get it really attached to anybody.
right. Because clearly, as you know, we're going to start this show off. And look, we really have gone off on a tangent. But I mean, imagine us watching the first episode of Sopranos and finding out, hey, we're going to be following Tony Sopranos through this thing. And at the very end, the homicide attempt actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we following now? Like, let's say that he didn't shoot the orange juice and he actually got Tony whenever he was going to the doctor. Yeah, who are we going to follow now? Seal?
Paulie.
I won't. That show with the last 6.2 seasons, it wouldn't happen. But I'm with it.
Father Phil.
Father Phil in Tantola. Yes. Just because of the last name.
Bishop, this is the worst parish you could ever. I need to move yesterday. Greenland. Let me have Greenland.
Right. I get threatened every week. Passive aggressive people. You know, I went outside one day just to check the grounds and I saw a whole pasta in the trash. Who would do that?
Christopher's friend JT comes by and says, "You think you got it bad?"
I got beat up with a laptop.
Every single time he comes around.
Dude does not see me without at least punching me in the face. Oh, one time he was with Christopher where he didn't get beat up, but he did get physically hurt whenever he lost his car. They were at the diner. He didn't necessarily get hurt. Now, mind you, the evidence from the last whooping was still there, but he gave him a couple bucks.
Then the Russian comes by and like, yeah, they broke some stuff when they were at my house. And Father Phil's like, didn't they shoot you? I got over it. I got over it.
Oh, we find out that the Russian was behind Paulie's mom dying. That's it. That's it. I'm sorry, folks. We're back on track.
Harold attends a meeting with other black folks in the area and discusses with Cyril and another friend his plans to start hustling in the neighborhood against the mafia. He has notorious kingpin Frank Lucas to back him up. Giuseppina comes closer to getting her own salon. She discusses with the lady who owns the current building that she had wanted to be a priest back in her hometown, but thought she would be restrained over there. Her relationship with Dickie also starts to sour as he proves to be at least verbally abusive towards her. She even develops an affair with Harold, who claims he can help her get her salon faster than Dickie can. Ain't nobody got in the salon yet.
No,
Anybody can say they'll get you a salon.
I can get you a salon, but actually getting the salon, that's a whole different game.
Tony plus Artie and Jackie April hijack an ice cream truck and harass the driver before going to a spot where they distribute free ice cream to the kids in the neighborhood. Jackie, can you drive stick? Later on, Johnny and Livia plus Dickie and Joanne discuss Tony's prospects, with Dickie and Johnny having high hopes for him. But Livia only has negative things to say, to the point where Johnny fires a shot through Livia's hairdo.
This is one that I was waiting on.
The embarrassing story of how Johnny shoots through Livia's beehive wig, which Janice related in the episode Soprano Home Movies, is shown in this movie. In the episode, Janice says that it happened while Uncle Junior and his Gumar, Rosemarie, were in the car, and that they heard the story through her. When this happened in the movie, however, Dickie and Joanne are in the car with Johnny and Livia.
Which means that Corrado has weaseled his way into another story.
Harold goes by a shop where one of Dickie's guys picks up the earnings in exchange for protection, telling the shop owner that one of his own guys will be picking him up from now on. That dude is in the corner just waiting for the exchange to go on. He's like looking at stuff. He's flipping through, just waiting.
Just wait.
Harold kills Dickie's guy and steals his money. In retaliation, Dickie gets Silvio, Paulie, and Big Pussy to get to Cyril, where they torture him by sticking a power tool in his mouth to find out who ordered the hit on Dickie's guy. That is a scene right there.
That was heavy.
He was in bed, and they're like, boom.
Right. I mean, now mind you, he got a couple shots off, just not at anybody. And then when you see bits of teeth just laying on his face, yeah, that's heavy.
Cyril said Harold carried it out on his own volition, and when Cyril tries to run free, Silvio shoots him dead. Livia
While fixing his hairpiece.
Right. That got me. I'm like, wait, he's almost bald there. He got like the bacon strips.
He really does.
And I'm like, he had hair and all that. Like, I'm not saying, I'm like, yeah, everybody knows it was a piece, but I'm like, I didn't think he went bald that early.
Like, that's what they said. He's been bald for a while.
Livia is called in by Tony's school principal to discuss his behavior. He stole the answers to a test, but the principal notes to Livia that Tony has genuine potential as a leader despite his lack of effort in school. She also tells Livia about how Tony had mentioned one of his fondest memories was Livia reading a story to him and snuggling up close to him in bed, which almost brings Livia to tears. I tell you what, she perks up at this point.
Yeah.
Dickie is out with Johnny plus Buddha, Bumpy, and Sarah, and another guy. Buddha makes a crass comment regarding Giuseppina, which causes Dickie to punch him in the face. Moments later, Harold and two of his guys blow off Buddha's head. Dude's face is just half
gone.
Side note, Buddha is played by Joey Coco Diaz. Now, dude, if you ever want to just YouTube him sometime, the life this dude has lived, you're like, what in the world?
Yeah.
They shoot Dickie and Johnny's friend. The two shoot the driver and Harold's friend before causing a van to crash into another car and start a fire. Dickie runs into the bar and grabs a rifle to arm himself as Harold makes his way in. Dickie fires a shot, but Harold isn't hit. The two look at each other, and Harold leaves as they hear sirens getting closer. Livia makes No, go ahead.
That standoff right there was real. Because now, like, at no point in time up until this point have Harold and Dickie been really in the same room since Harold has made his power play.
Right.
They saw Cyril. Cyril, spills the beans about Harold, but Harold and Dickie still hadn't been face to face. So for them to have this confrontation where, I mean, Dickie could have shot again. Harold could have shot one more time before he left. They chose not to. So yeah, that was powerful.
Livia makes an earnest attempt to spend time with Tony by making him food. It gets sour when he notes a pamphlet on the table for a pill that was recommended to Livia, and Tony starts singing some Rolling Stones lyrics. Livia accuses him of being a drug addict because of his love for that kind of music, as well as Janice's own use of weed. This is guilt by association here.
Yeah, 1,000%. This is her guilt. Period.
At Buddha's funeral, Tony approaches Dickie over the drug in question and asks if he can secure it to help Livia improve her mood and behavior. Dickie agrees to help. Afterwards, Junior slips and falls on the steps, severely injuring his back. Dickie laughs hysterically, and Junior becomes visibly pissed. Now, I'll say this. All right. I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause it here. I will say this. This is the most over the top scene of somebody making fun of somebody else. Because you're seeing it from Junior's perspective. Dickie
Right.
is almost like he's pointing and
Pointing and
openly
laughing.
laughing. Yes.
Right.
When trying to make love to his Guma later, he experiences too much pain and is still angry at Dickie for laughing. When Tony goes by Dickie's workplace to ask about the medicine, he shows Tony some of the TVs and speakers he's acquired legally. While Tony is impressed, he worries that participating in the same business as Dickie would hinder his chances at college, since he does want to try out for the football team.
Right.
Harold meets with Frank Lucas, who suggests that he start dealing in the same drug business that he is involved in. Harold brings up the issue about Dickie and his desire to take him down. Frank Lucas, mentioned as the Dope King, is the same man played by Denzel Washington in American Gangster.
I wish they had been able to get him for this. That would have been so cool.
Later in the movie, Frank Lucas is seen wearing a black and white chinchilla coat. In American Gangster, this coat was given to him by his wife, which made him stand out to Detective Richie Roberts at a boxing match and soon led to him and his entire crime family's eventual downfall.
Yep.
Dickie and Giuseppina go for a romantic day out on the beach. While they are walking, Giuseppina comes clean about her affair with Harold. You never admit to that.
No.
Dickie becomes enraged and drags her out to the water where he drowns her in the tide and waits until her body sinks before he flees. He visits Sal again in prison and tells him about Giuseppina, saying she died of pneumonia.
Water in the lungs.
But while Sal seems to know that Dickie has something to do with both Dick and Giuseppina's death, he doesn't judge since he's a murderer himself.
I mean, absolutely, bro. It's like so much death around you, son. Like, really, like it's kind of obvious. No one else is putting two and two together except for Sal.
Like, he's not there to judge because he's given Dickie a lot of good advice and how to deal with things, and is the whole reason I believe that Christopher is alive, because he talks about this. It's the wanting, and you have to do this and that. But I think he also wants to say, listen, don't bullshit me. I'm not here to judge, but don't lie to my face.
I mean, because here's the thing. Even if he told Sal the truth, everybody that's made has cut Sal off because Sal killed a made guy. So it's not like anybody's going to listen to him anyway.
Right.
Shoot him straight.
However, he does order Dickie to stay out of Tony's life so that he does not fall down the same path as him. Very wise words, and we'll see again later on how it doesn't quite work out that way. Tony calls Dickie while out with Carmela and another kid to ask him to get them some beer. Dickie doesn't answer, and Tony ends up in a fight with the other kid when he makes a snide comment, and Carmela tries in vain to break up the fight. Tony later goes by Dickie's workplace again, with Silvio telling Tony that Dickie isn't there. Tony continues knocking, but Dickie tells Silvio to turn off the lights so he'll go away. Dickie starts to weep, but masks it through laughter. Now, he does then have, tell Silvio to have Tony meet him the next day.
So,
and that he does have the medication. We do learn that.
He does have the medication. So what the fight that led Tony to go and bang on the door, it was him and Artie. So this is the first time that we get to see Artie and Tony fighting with one another, because we also get the introduction of Carmela's character as well at the phone booth, where Tony's asking her for another dime so he can make another call. But it's I'll be quiet because my point's coming. Keep going, bro.
Dickie goes to his car and doesn't see a gunman behind him, and the man shoots Dickie twice, killing him. Junior then approaches a ringing payphone where the gunman tells him it's done. The film reveals that Junior Soprano had Dickie Moltisanti whacked for laughing at him when he slipped on wet stairs outside of a church. In the original series, Tony pins responsibility for Dickie Moltisanti's death on a man named Jilly Ruffalo, claiming that Ruffalo killed a former cellmate of Dickie's and that Dickie took out one of Ruffalo's eyes in retaliation. Per David Chase in an interview with Rolling Stone, scenes were filmed with Ed Marinaro as Ruffalo, but cut from the completed film. One scene would have featured Junior speaking to Ruffalo and asking him to arrange the hit on Dickie, leading some credence to Tony's story. As it is in the completed film, only a vague reference to Ruffalo remains as Dickie tells the numbers runner he attacks that he'll take out his eye like he's done to someone else in the past.
Got you.
In one of the final scenes, we see Tony waiting for Dickie at Holson's ice cream shop. This is the location where the iconic last scene of the series takes place. So you see there Tony's first life end. Regardless of what you think about the ending of The Sopranos, his life of the straight and narrow college, trying out for football, not being in the life, it dies while he's waiting for Dickie because he doesn't know that Dickie is dead yet.
I think that, and that, so now we've gotten to that point, and Tony going to Dickie's funeral, and we get the pinky back,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like, and I love it. It's all Junior's fault. It's all Junior's fault because had Junior not had Dickie, and this is me speculating, but this is just me speculating going off of what we were seeing.
Right.
Tony was pissed at Dickie and wanted absolutely nothing to do with the life. Tony was not going to be in the life. Dickie wasn't going to let him be down based on what he had talked about with Sal, but he wanted to. But he was going to bring him back in because he recognized that keeping the distance, based on the conversation he had with Sil, keeping the distance wasn't going to help Tony at all. So him meeting Tony for ice cream that morning wasn't to get him in; it was to keep him out, but to still keep him close. So
and give him the pills
and give him the pills, which would have helped out Olivia, But what we get is Tony knowing that Dickie wanted to meet him, which obviously made Tony happy because Dickie was his favorite, and he hated the way things were going. And now he's dead, and it's like, oh, he wanted to come, he wanted to, bring me back in, and now I have to avenge him. That's crazy. All Junior's fault. So Junior's the reason that Tony is in, and then Junior tries to take him out. What are you talking about?
Dickie's funeral is held with some giving various opinions on the man. Livia thinks he was weak because they found the mood drug in his trunk that was meant for her, while Janice says that he was her favorite uncle. Tony then goes over to Dickie's casket and appears to imagine him holding his hand up for another pinky promise, indicating that Tony will go on to join Dickie in his father's line of work. Christopher's closing words state that this is now his uncle Tony Soprano, the man he went to hell for. The credits show that Harold is continuing to do well for himself in the neighborhood. All right, I've got some extra trivia for you here.
All right.
The film's title comes from Dickie Moltisanti's family name, which, when translated from Italian to English, means Many Saints. Michael Gandolfini had never watched The Sopranos prior to being cast in the role as the young Tony Soprano.
Wow.
According to director Alan Taylor, Edie Falco shot a scene as Carmela Soprano that was to be used early in the film, but they decided to go in a different direction. According to Taylor, they shot a few things with other original cast members in case they wanted to use it. Michael Gandolfini had to redo many takes as his portrayal was sometimes too close to his father's interpretation of the character, while his was intended to be still a young teenager and not yet the feared adult gangster. Alessandro Navota didn't realize that he was playing the lead role until filming had begun. He was only given portions of the script beforehand.
Wow.
The dog Tony is playing with is Tippy, referenced in the Sopranos season 5 episode in Camelot, which you talked about.
It's also the name of my car.
Billy Magnuson spent a day with Tony Sirico to prepare to play the younger version of Paulie. They also shot scenes with Sirico, but from what I've heard, it's like he wasn't comfortable because he was starting to suffer from dementia
Gotcha.
at this point and was not comfortable with his performance.
I get it.
Nick Vallonga's father, Tony Lip, starred as Carmine Lupertazzi in the original series. When Dickie is visiting Uncle Sally, played by Ray Liotta, in jail, he brings him several records. In one particular scene, Uncle Sally is holding an album by Joe Pesci. This is another homage to Goodfellas, as Liotta and Pesci were co-stars in this movie. The film is narrated by Michael Imperioli and character is Christopher Moltisanti. The character is killed off in the final season of The Sopranos in Kennedy and Heidi at the hands of his uncle, Tony Soprano. Christopher narrates the story from beyond the grave, noting that he met death on Route 23 and later stating that Tony Soprano was the man he went to hell for, echoing a line from the series episode Long-Term Parking, in which Christopher told his girlfriend, Adriana, that Tony was the guy I'm going to hell for.
So, watching, not deleted scenes, but they did a making of on the Blu-ray. And to your point, talking about having to redo several takes because Michael was too spot on with James, like they made that point several times and actually showed several times throughout the film, just like a montage of clips where he looks up like Tony looks. Like it's just impeccable how the mannerisms are so spot on. And I'm just like, man, that's awesome. That is awesome. The one thing that I would have wanted to see, but I know timeline wise it wasn't going to work. Tony having the plan with Tony B and passing out as opposed to being able to go and get that job done so that Tony B would get arrested. I know that was probably 4 years after because I was in their late teens, early 20s when that happened. But that's just another one of those early stories that I would have loved to have seen in the film.
There was a fake poster going around a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it, about that they were supposedly coming out with a limited series called Soprano, and it was Michael playing Tony in the late 70s and throughout the 80s that would show all of this stuff.
Well, that's all. That would be awesome.
It would be, but they're like, no, this is not real. David Chase has an idea. He says it is not. He says as of this moment, it is not a continuation with the kids, and he said it was not. He said it was not that. He has an idea, and he and HBO can't come together because what they want, he doesn't want, and what he wants, they don't want, and they have a right to first refusal, and if they don't give the yay or the nay, then he can't take it anywhere else. So
gotcha.
I think that we are going to get something else because he says he doesn't want to do a follow-up, but I think it is more along the lines of bridging the two series. Now, I've got 4 points here that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and then we'll go with our overall thoughts. Number
Okay.
one, number one, I already sent you, but we have to get it on video. Johnny Soprano was not a saint. I don't get it. Johnny Boy was not a saint. Livia lied to
Johnny,
us.
Livia did lie to us. Johnny was not a saint. But then also, one thing that I wanted to, and I'm glad that you said this, Johnny wasn't very present in the series. Johnny was not very present in this movie.
Right.
Johnny, and I think that was on purpose to show that Johnny
Absolutely.
really did not have an impact on Tony at all. All the players that played a role in Tony becoming who he was featured in this film, and we saw Johnny Boy was not one of them.
I laughed out loud and did a fist pump in the air at the makings of a varsity athlete line when he said it. I'm like, yes, it had to have been there.
It had to have been there, bro.
The first thing I'm like, oh, chef's kiss right at the beginning is them getting Michael Imperioli to narrate it as his character and the way they brought it in. I'm like, oh, that is just awesome. That is just awesome.
Because he didn't know who his father was. I thought that was perfect.
Yes. And then, dude, if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet have not left the ground. As it's ending, I said, this would be the perfect opportunity for them to play Woke Up This Morning. And that the like as I said that first note hits.
Yep.
And I'm getting chills now thinking about it. I'm like,
It was perfect.
I wanted, if I had not been on my couch, I would have stood up and applauded. I would
I
have
mean, bro,
absolutely have stood up and
you're
applauded.
talking about the beginning of everything. And I'm saying, again, we've already said it, Junior is responsible for all of it. But when you're talking about the moment that Tony Soprano is now on the path that he is on, is at that moment when he does the Pinky Promise with Dickie in the casket. That was it. Which totally makes sense. It's to that's why we get the music synonymous with this killer.
Mm-hmm. So we've done it. All of the Sopranos, Many Saints of Newark. Overall thoughts.
You know, Joey, bro, there's a reason why we did this show first, man. I've watched this series through, I can't even tell you how many times now. The writing was done well in the series, and then you fear a letdown, and I'm talking, with all the series that HBO have had, from Sex in the City to Entourage, all these series that have made movies, you always worry about, and I'll even go one further to say, even Bob's Burgers, which isn't an HBO show, but it's a show series that made a film. You're always worried about, is this going to be an extra long episode, or is this going to be several episodes smashed together into a movie? What's the pacing going to be like? All the Saints gave us story that we did not know, but it still gave us highlights from the series to look forward to. So when you get the comment, he's not a varsity athlete, he doesn't have the makings of a varsity athlete. When you get that and realize everything else that was happening around it, it's like that was the reward, hearing that line.
Mm-hmm.
But that line was not the focus of that scene.
Right.
So it's like they gave us so much more than I think a lot of us may have expected, if you did have expectations. Like, maybe your expectations were low. Maybe you were thinking that they were just going to give us the highlights that we knew, inform it in a way that just made a movie. But no, they gave us a movie and they made references.
Right.
So I'm totally okay with the way they played it out. David Chase did a great job with his idea, and the characters that they chose, the actors that they chose, the character arcs that we saw, and it was an amazing, amazing show. So kudos to them, for, in my opinion, really getting folks started to binge it. Like, yeah.
I agree, and we talked about that the first episode. Like, TV had changed, but this brought back that water cooler show moment where you like, I've got to watch it. I
Yep.
can't tape it. I could, but they're going to be talking about it the next day. I told you like I
Yep.
would listen to radio shows, and they're like, listen, we're going to talk about it. So if you don't want to
You
hear
might
it,
want
you
to
need to
turn it.
turn the radio off and
Yep.
all of that. And thinking about this, and I've noticed it in my life and also with other people and other things. If things had been gone differently and Dickie survived, then of course Tony's life would be different. But because it went down, and we always talk about it comes back to Junior. Then
Mm-hmm.
in Tony's mind, as we pick it up for the first season and the second season, Dickie kind of recedes in his mind. We know he's still important, but he's kind of recedes, and Junior kind of comes to the forefront, as you talked about before. And when that happens, thinking back, he's like, "Oh yeah, Junior's the one that always came by, and he would like throw the baseball with me, which I'm sure that he did, but he remembers those things more fondly now because
Right.
he has receded in his mind
Right.
and all of that." And um, Junior's going to Junior. It's what
Junior's always gonna junior.
it's what he did up until the point that he shot Tony.
Yeah. I mean, look, Junior was junioring after he shot Tony when he was in the psych ward, and they threatened him with moving him
Right.
to another place. Like up until that point of threatening to send him to a state-run facility, Junior was going to Junior. He didn't want to take the medication because he knew what the medication was going to do. But once he started taking the medication, then he could no longer Junior. They
Right.
took his ability to Junior away.
And
You
in the
know,
going back to that first and second season, him and Livia just outright gunning for Tony without you get Richie um talking about that, and Junior's like, how dare you in my own home.
so to the point, and with the speculation from the fake poster, I would love to see that because it's gonna let us know how Richie became the boss. How did he become the boss of the DeMeo family prior to Tony and Junior taking over? Because it's like we got that. There's no clear guy,
Right.
right? Like Johnny Boy's down. Corrado's supposedly taking, the reins while Johnny Boy is locked up. But how did the Aprils take over? Because when we are introduced to this universe, the Aprils are running the DeMeo family. So I'm like, what
Right.
happened?
You get Jackie. um
Yeah, I said Richie, but yeah, you get Jackie. Yeah,
um and then what I really think, because
the
there is
jacket.
it's the jacket.
It's the jacket.
What I Because this just came to me, because during all of this there was an old man DeMeo who was in prison. I think that's the story that David Chase wants to tell.
Got
I
you.
this and this is Joey's speculation. I've not read or heard that anywhere. But there is that. And folks, we talked about it last time. We're going to talk about it again this time. We're going to record again in a couple of days to start our marathon recording sessions, because we are going to die hard through July. We are going to
You know
die
why?
hard. Why?
You know why? We're doing it in July because I always hear about the old school saying of Christmas in July.
Right. And with that, a little peek behind the curtain here. We are recording this on Leon Day. Are you familiar with Leon Day?
Refresh me. Refresh me. My name is Franz.
Leon Day is Noel spelled backwards, because we are halfway to Christmas. From Christmas to Christmas.
Ha! That's wild. Festivus for the rest of us.
Feliz Navidad.
Uh,
So we're gonna dive into this. I'm going to have a uh, argument for both sides of the is Die Hard a Christmas movie debate, and we will go into it as well as where I think Michael Scott goes wrong in his criticism of John McClane. So we will do all of that and more. But when July starts, we will be dying hard. Then we will die harder. Then we will die hard with a vengeance.
with a vengeance
Then it's going to be a good day. To,
to die
no,
hard.
no, it's going
Live
to
free. You got to live free
we're going to live free
and die hard.
and die hard, and then
Yeah.
it's going to be a good day to die
A
hard.
good day to die. Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
just to let y'all know, this is not my first time having this debate on Die Hard. My argument has not changed, but the way I deliver it has. Stay tuned.
but with that said, my friend, go ahead and plug any and everything that you have.
Hey man, summer camp is now available for sale on digital. I told y'all it wouldn't take long. So that's available on Amazon Prime if you want to be able to see me on your TV at home. Um, and I'll be filming episode 6 of Daddy's Little Girl coming up here this month. We got a premiere coming up in the northern side of the state for Has Anyone Seen Bill, as well as my directorial debut and introducing one Joey Harris to the world of film.
What? What?
Is going to be taking place the first week in August because Art Crawl, while it did not make the top 15 international films, it did make top 5 local. So definitely feeling real good about that, bro.
That is awesome. I had the
Yeah.
best time recording with you, learning who Mr. Hand Me Down Trousers is.
He's dead now.
And,
Spoilers.
and we've been doing a little bit of world building for future things.
Yes.
It's all connected, folks. It is all
All of
connected.
it is connected, man. This universe is coming together, and I realize now, and I'm sorry to get off on this tangent, bro, but I realize how much fun Jordan Peele is having, man. Like I'm not doing it to the magnitude that he is yet, but to go from doing the Key and Peele show, and I asked that question, why is he leaving? Because the show is so popular. And then he did Get Out, and then he did Us, and then Nope, but he's got some more stuff coming, and he's been asked to do a Marvel film now. I think he's going to be the director on the X-Men, the first X-Men film. Like this dude is doing great work, but just when you're writing something, the the temptation to put it all in one universe is just too great. It's too freaking great, man, and I'm having so much fun. So look, listen, folks, Joey Harris exists in this universe. The Joey Harris show is real.
It exists.
It exists, man. So more things coming, man. More things coming. TJ does not. I am officially dead. Spoilers.
As far as we know, I mean,
It's
you,
look
you, you
because
never know.
supernatural stuff happens, man. Somebody can find an amulet. Like Joey might be looking for an amulet right now.
I might be. You never know. You
You
never know.
never know.
I do have a question for you, and if you've told me, I've forgotten, so please pardon me. Filming episode 6 next week of is Daddy's Little Girl?
Daddy's Little Girl, yeah, I'm playing an amazingly charismatic drug addict named Howard.
I mean, that's what I can see you at. And where will this be located?
This is going to be filmed in Columbia, South Carolina.
All right, to be
Yeah.
shown on.
This is going to be shown on Tubi and Amazon Prime.
Awesome. That's in 2025, right?
That is in 2025, yes. This is actually a series that is based on a book that was written by a young man by the name of Corrado, an amazing story. And my character I'm supposed to be dead already. You know, like I was in we did the first 3 episodes, and my guy Howard was supposed to die in jail in episode 4, but because of the portrayal that I brought to the character, my guy's like, nah, I can't kill you yet. So, looking over the lines for the next couple of episodes, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun.
That is awesome, my brother. At the Joey Harris on all social media. If there's a social media and I'm on it, look at the Joey Harris. Also at the Joey Harris on YouTube. This is what we're watching. Make sure that you subscribe. Hit that subscription bell. Subscribe. Get the notification. It's down there. You know where it is. We need 50 folks so that we can go live.
Because that's what y'all want.
That is what they want.
That's what y'all want. That's what you want. Like, y'all, can you imagine this? Well, it's actually, no. There he's on that side. Can you imagine this live? Oh, my word. Get the bleep button ready. Bleep, 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 bleep.
Also at the Joey Harris on Venmo and Cash App. If you want to drop us some coin, I will give TJ his share.
I'm saying
no amount is too small. If you give us $1, I will Venmo him, Cash App him 50 cents if I can.
I posted today. I'll take my $3 and go away now. Like, y'all don't understand. No amount is too small. About tree fitting.
That being said, no amount is too big. If you're a secret billionaire, you will not hurt my feelings if you drop a couple of million.
Not at all, because I will get a tattoo on my shoulder of your face.
Now you won't hurt my feelings. You will hurt my floor because I'm going to pass out if that ever came up.
Good times.
But at that point, we'll have millions. We'll pay for a new floor.
No, we can pay for all the floors. I'm going.
You get a floor, and you get a floor.
Right, like I'm going up to Jersey just so that I can see if I can see Charles S. Dutton moonlighting at a little yard place because he can't be a cop anymore. Thanks a lot for that, Tony. Right? Charles S. Dutton's going to sell me flooring materials. It's happening. I had to bring it back to the Sopranos, baby.
Absolutely. Fantastic show. So thankful that you agreed to go with me on this, but tune in. We're gonna die hard. It's gonna be hard for us to die.
It's gonna be hard for us to die. Yes.
Hard to die in July. We need to have
hard to put that on the shirt.
It's on the shirt. TJ, as always, love you, my brother. Thank you all, and we will see you next time.